Hey everyone, welcome to the horror show. I'm Annabelle.
I'm Annabelle.
I'm Fuego Bell.
What's up, guys? We're
Hello.
here to review Annabelle Comes Home. Now, we just saw this. It is Wednesday for us as we're watching this, but you guys won't be able to see this until at the earliest Monday, I believe. So they had us embargoed for about
Woo.
6 days, which is a bummer and not. It's a weird indicator for this movie because usually you don't want to let reviews out well ahead of your movie because you're worried about it. Pardon me. I don't think that should be the case with this one because I mean, getting into our overall thoughts, I had fun with this. I enjoyed Annabelle Comes Home quite a bit.
Pretty damn good.
Marcia, your overall thoughts?
I really went in with low expectations because it's Annabelle and I'm critical. But I wasn't disappointed at all. Like, I had fun. I think I screamed the loudest. They did a great job with like suspense and just overall story. Even though it was super simple and the acting and everything, I thought it was a well put together addition to the series. So congratulations, you won.
Truly.
Fuego.
Yeah, so it's not going to challenge the two Conjuring films, but I will say it's pretty close to creation for me as far as being. I mean, there's like the upper echelon of the Conju films. I guess I will start calling them because
Conjureverse.
Conjureverse. Well, Conju films. Yeah, but
The Conju films has a weird syllable in it that I don't want to focus on, so let's go with Conjureverse.
Sure, why not? No, but this was definitely one of the better ones. I probably like Creation a little bit better at the end of the day, but they're drastically different films, and this did some very cool world building, and I really love McKenna Grace. I think she's badass, and she's awesome in pretty much everything I've seen her in at this point, and some big properties no less. So yes, this was fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, again, I enjoyed it, but yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect, but based on the trailers, it did look more like The Conjuring 3 starring Annabelle, and that is kind of what we got, except for the fact that we didn't have the Warrens quite as much as the trailer led you to believe. But that didn't make it, less of an impactful movie. So because I enjoyed myself as much as I did, in spite of that fact, it didn't need to be The Conjuring 3. It worked well as an Annabelle sequel set in much more directly. Like, for instance, if The Conjuring proper was a mansion, right? You might say that the nun is the pool. You might say that Annabelle is the gazebo. You know what I mean? Annabelle Creation got a little bit closer to the mansion, and this one felt like it was the patio of the mansion. Do you know what I mean? Like, it felt like it was under the Conjuring roof, but it was just an Annabelle story under the Conjuring roof. And I really had a great time with this movie. So let's get into the story, the acting, the effects, all of that good stuff in turn. And it wasn't the deepest of movies, I will say that. So
not at all.
Everything that you see in the trailer is the movie. Like, you might think, oh, this is just one of the acts. No, everything that you see in the trailer is the entirety of the movie. So once dark-haired girl starts touching everything in the room that we all know. I guess let me back up a little bit. So the Warrens are paranormal investigators that have starred in The Conjuring 1 and 2. Annabelle is just one of the artifacts that they have run across in their paranormal investigations that then spun off into its own 2 movies. Now they're back under the same roof because Annabelle was a part of the Warrens' collection, as it were, which is just a room full of cursed objects or objects that attract negative attention. Anything that's bad, is specifically paranormally bad, is collected in this room that is heavily locked down. And so what ends up happening is the Warrens end up leaving for a night, and their daughter has a babysitter who has a friend. And what I liked about this, getting into the more important part of the story, is that the friend had an arc. I thought the friend was just going to be the MacGuffin that sort of set everything loose, and like that was going to be that.
And I
but
must
no.
say, until we found out her arc, I didn't like her. And
Okay.
then when we got that little range to what was going on with her, I was like, okay, I'm actually digging this a whole lot more.
Yeah.
No.
So it turns out that she actually has a reason for going poking around the Warrens' evil room, And as she does, she touches a lot of stuff. Again, all of this is revealed in the trailer, so we're not spoiling anything. This is a non-spoiler review, at least until maybe the end. We might throw some spoilers in at the end, but if we do, we'll warn you.
See.
But guys, she touches a bunch of stuff, and what I liked also about it is that it wasn't just Annabelle. Like, she touches a bunch of stuff, and a bunch of stuff comes into play. Mm-hmm. So it becomes a survival, or a night of survival for these three young women without the aid of the Warrens in the Warrens' house, with multiple things attacking from different angles. And that worked way better for me than I thought it was going to. As shallow of a pool as it is, it's a fun pool to play in.
Yeah, that's all you really need in this movie anyway. Like, I really like how they distinguish that Annabelle cannot be possessed. And this isn't a spoiler. We all know she never gets possessed. But yeah, but she's a conduit for other spirits.
She gets moved by the spirits.
Right, right. So she's just a beacon. She's just waiting to be, beaconing, I guess. But I like how they did it though, because it was like all the other movies, you're just waiting for something to happen. You're waiting for her to move. You're waiting for, like, what exactly is Annabelle? And I feel like this one actually got to the essence of Annabelle and what she can actually do, and why she's so scary, and why they're so terrified of what she is. And I thought they did a really great job displaying it, and just being able to play with all the different, toys that they have in this room that we've all been waiting to watch. And it was just really fun.
She came off as a bit of a paranormal ringleader in this one.
Yeah, of sorts. Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Really
I mean,
funny.
especially with the scene early on when we do have the Warrens involved, and so based on the trailers, I wasn't expecting a ton of involvement from them anyway. I thought that was just kind of like, oh, it's an attention grabber for the casual audience that is waiting so anxiously for Conjuring 3, and we're gonna have to wait a little bit longer, but they are filming it right now, which is cool. I enjoyed it quite a bit, I must say. It was a little hammier, I thought, in the humor department, like much more forefront in just the goofy humor than you see in the Conjuring films and even some of the previous Annabelle films. It was more akin to the amount of humor we had in The Nun, which was also done by Gary Dauberman. This was him directing and writing, but he's one of James Wan's chosen guys with his Atomic Monster stuff that he's done. And James Wan, it makes me wonder how far ahead as the Feige of this shared universe is he thinking, because we still have a Crooked Man movie, still have Conjuring 3, we still have we have one other, and there's actually a couple new. Best thing I will say about this is more world building for the Warrens, as far as potential cases that we could see either them investigate or just explored in some particular fashion. It is kind of surface level, as you mentioned, but I felt like, especially in the third act when we got some legitimate scares, it was effective with a few of them in particular, most notably something with coins on eyes. I thought that when that was explored, even on a visual standpoint, when we get into effects, I thought it was very effective and some of my favorite bits in the film. So,
you know what's funny about this? In retrospect, this could have been literally just another trial run. Let's see what the audience is like in this, and we're going to make more spin-off movies about those objects.
That's what I'm thinking.
You know what I'm
Very smart marketing.
You know what I'm voting for? A series, like a mini-series.
Oh, a miniseries?
Miniseries, or just like some sort of Netflix or Hulu or something.
That'd
where
be
they
great.
just do the Warren
They'd
family.
have to pay Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga
so much
pretty
money.
heftily.
Yeah.
But I would love
they
it.
create a whole new separate universe of them.
True.
like we see done time and time again, and just really explore all the different stories they have.
Do like Lil Conjuring, where it's like early them, where you can get like in Supernatural when they go back in time and see their young father and stuff like that. Do it like that, where it's a young Ed and Lorraine Warren as they're collecting those objects for the first
they
time.
buy I can just see a trailer where they're buying the house and they open the room and it's empty. You know what I mean? And you're like,
Oh, I know what that room's gonna be.
Well, they even hint at it at one point in the movie where they're like, I ran off with the boy for 3 days at one particular point. And, does he know about this? Does Mr. Warren know?
Yeah. So let's get into the acting.
Yes.
I enjoyed the acting in all of this. I mean, there is a young man who comes into play who ends up being more comic relief than anything else, but he was effective as it.
Not as bad as the Frenchie, right?
Not as bad. No, not as bad as Frenchie. From The Nun, in case you didn't know. No, this movie, I actually liked the sum of all of its parts, as well as all of its parts. I enjoyed everyone in their own little sector of the movie. I thought this young man was funny, and I thought he did his job well. I thought there were definitely, I guess, going back to story just briefly, there were some definite script conveniences. Had to be. But yeah, it didn't bother me. It's still made for a relatively, it's still made for an entertaining movie in spite of those shortcomings. So, getting back to the acting though, I just enjoyed everyone. And again, I was expecting to be really annoyed by the friend that's like, I just touched everything because I hate those characters that set everything off. But then when they gave her story, I was like, I'm on board with this character. Now I'm on board with all the characters. I like it. And honestly, I really like Ed and Lorraine Warren. I want them to be my mom and dad. You know what I mean? I was getting that. Not really. I had a great mom and dad, but I got that feeling. You know what I mean? So I loved the acting all the way around. Marcia?
I agree.
I'm going to go get a little something to mop myself.
Sure. I completely agree, because you never know what you're going to get with a mixed bag of actors coming in.
Is it like a box of chocolates?
Yeah, and you're talking about 3 young actors that needed to carry pretty much the whole movie, and they did a really good job. I don't know all of their names, but like Fuego does.
I don't know the 2 older ones, but the one that we have to mention is McKenna Grace, who played Thea in The Haunting of Hill House. She's also in Sabrina as the younger just version of her. She was in Captain Marvel. She's been in tons of different things, and she is a young actress that I feel like, she continues to prove that she's a force to be reckoned with in the realm of horror, like legitimately. She doesn't have to shoulder the entirety of the movie either, but as the Lorraine's daughter, she steals the movie for me, in all honesty. She is terrific in this. I honestly wish they had given her a little bit more to chew on, because I feel like the 2 older girls did have the predominant, well, maybe not the predominance, but a slightly larger chunk compared to what she has to do, and she's great in it though.
I really honestly thought Daniela, the older brunette, stole the show, to be honest. Dude. I thought she was fantastic, because we did get the arc with her. Every time that she was on screen, you were watching, you were paying attention, and you're like, what is she gonna do? And it was believable, like from the like, I'm just the rebel, or I'm gonna get this girl in trouble, but I want to explore and I'm nosy, and this to a very emotional journey that she goes through, and
especially the scene involving a boob tube.
Yeah,
I thought that was a
fun
scene to watch her act
awesome. That was actually really awesome.
She really
one of my favorite visual points.
Played the biggest role out of everyone there.
Her piano moment was pretty fucking good too. Pardon my French.
Oh yeah,
I really liked that.
We're
allowed
one to keep it PG-13.
Yeah, we're like, you got it. That moment specifically, again, without spoiling, it hit me emotionally 2 different ways very rapidly.
Honestly, in hindsight, it is kind of her movie to
Oh,
it
yeah,
is.
Absolutely.
It absolutely is.
Really
That's
is.
what I was trying to get to. Yeah. Like
her story is the
It
central.
was about her as much as it was about Annabelle. So.
It's about how her life is affected when she walks through the Ed and Lorraine Warren tent. You know what I mean? So let's get into the well, you know what? Before we get into effects, let's talk about scares. I want to start making sure we hit on the scares of these horror movies. So this movie did have jump scares.
Oh yeah.
It did have a number of them. However,
not effective.
However,
in my opinion.
Well, now I thought that while some of them may have been considered cheap, I did think they were effective. I did get creeped out a number of times. I brought my hands up to my face a number of times.
I was creeped out. The jump scares though weren't like.
A couple of them were effective. A couple of them weren't, but a couple of them were. There was ample jump scares. Some are going to be more beneficial than, or more impactful than others. However, regarding that, as we walked out, I heard a lot of people, granted, mostly women, not to offend, but they were saying they were freaked out. Oh, I was the one squealing up at the top. I was the one screaming over there. Like, they were freaked out. Everyone was freaked out, and I don't think there's going to be that many non-critics saying too many jump scares.
No, I thought it was excellent. I thought the suspense building that they did was perfect and in line with the jump scares that you knew were coming.
That's key.
But
suspense building.
But it was like, I was so tense just waiting for it to happen. And then when you got it, it was a huge payoff because I still wasn't expecting how they presented it. So like I knew something was coming, but I didn't know how it was going to go down. And so every time it happened, I mean, I was screaming. I legitimately screamed out
You were one of
loud.
those?
And like
There were a few.
alongside like the people
heard
next
Because she wasn't with us. She was a
I
few
was
rows
up- I was
behind
upstairs.
us.
I'm sure they would have.
I'm guessing
Yeah.
you were one of the ones we heard.
I
Yeah.
was screaming hardcore, and I didn't have anybody to hit because I usually hit Cecil, but
True.
they didn't know the people around me, so I couldn't hit them. But
Almost got kicked out.
And there was only one person I hit accidentally, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And
So,
yeah, but no, I thought they did a fantastic job with the jump scares. I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it as much because that sucks for you because it was so
Yeah.
enjoyable for me.
I have
Yeah,
a follow-up, but I want to hear Fuego's opinion first.
there was nothing like the daytime wheelchair scene in Creation for me.
Okay.
Nothing that really hit that level of like creep scare factor for me. But I will say that if we're talking about arcs and stuff like that, it's interesting how, you know, we have just kind of a transformative type arc like the handicapped girl in the previous movie with one character in this, so the whole similarity factor of just kind of forces and how they're at work and whatnot. But yeah, scares, I mean, a few things with the father, a few things with where we see, at least the way I interpreted it, the real force that is kind of using Annabelle as a conduit. And I thought that what you mentioned earlier, this was where they have outlined the nature of this doll better than in any previous installment. And
Well, they just came right out and said what everyone had to surmise for themselves after the last two movies.
Yeah, and I mean, all too often with these sort of movies where I often, despite the way I was raised, forget the distinction between a ghost and just its ties with something that was
Ghost
of
and
this,
demon are different.
of this earth initially, and then something that was never existing on this plane and is completely demonic and otherworldly. I find that fascinating, and I felt the fact that they just outlined that, I was just like, okay, cool, I get this a little bit better now. So yeah.
So, just the last thing I want to hit as far as scares go is, because this thought did run through my mind as I was watching it, so I feel then I should share it. While the tension was real, they did it so many times where it was a slow build to tension that it eventually lost its effectiveness for me. Okay, that's not quite what I'm going for, but
Okay, sorry.
but no, it's not far off, because I'm like, at one point this thought crossed my mind. I'm like, I'm a horror hostage right now. Like, I'm literally, I can't move away from this shot. It's just a slow shot, and something's gonna pop out at the end, and I know something's gonna happen right after this shot, and it's just a matter. So at that point, it becomes less scary and more a waiting game. So that was what I was running into a little bit at one or two times, because all of these Conjuring movies are starting to get a little bit similar as far as that goes.
Formulaic, yeah.
So that's a bit of a problem I can see that's going to progress if they continue to make these movies very similarly going forward. So I'm not knocking it down a whole point or anything as a result, but I did find that thought cross my mind in the back third of the movie, because I'm like, I have no choice but to wait until they reveal what they're going to reveal with this really slow moving camera angle, and I'm kind of getting tired of it.
Well, and then to add on to that, I find myself, because I know they like to hide things in the shadows, I find myself
Looking in the background more than the foreground.
Because I'm like, okay, this is taking a long time, and I know she's eventually going to get somewhere and I'm going to get scared. But what's happening in the background? And there were at least 2 or 3 moments where I definitely saw what they were trying to reveal before the person behind me and 2 people in front of me did. And I'm like, yeah.
And honestly, there
Your
is
surroundings.
So then it got interesting to see, like, how long is it going to take for everybody else to catch up to what I'm seeing here.
and that's
So-
actually fun, and we know there's a lot of movies copying that approach now, from Hereditary to It Chapter 2 in their trailer.
I wouldn't say Hereditary is copying that approach, because they used it slightly differently. It was a full-on person up in the background and stuff, not just like a specter that could disappear if your main subject turns around. It
I
was
don't
actual
know. If
people.
you have to,
I
if you
get
have
what
to
you're
pay
saying,
attention
but
to the background to see what the creepiness that's
you don't
transpiring.
have to.
I think-
It's just bonuses for people that do.
but
Yeah.
that's where the similarity lies, I'd say. Just
I get what you're saying. I was thinking about mentioning Hereditary, but then my mind was like, no, Hereditary did it well and differently enough that I don't think it's quite the same. But I could understand people that would.
Okay.
So let's move on to the effects, okay? Now, the set design is the first thing I want to mention, set and production design, because it's the same place we've seen before. We see the room where the nun was revealed numerous times in this movie, but there are different things that are in the room this time. So I liked that. And did we see this daughter in the previous movies? We must have, right?
Not played by that character.
Not by that
Not by
character.
that
But
character?
they do
Or by
mention
that
the
actress,
daughter.
Because this was
and
still
the
a
photo.
period piece. Everyone
Yes.
was still very much in their, what was it, 70s gear, something like that? Uh-oh. I got an alarm going off. So I keep knocking into shit over here. Chucky's leg is getting annoying.
Yeah, this is the first film with McKenna Grace, obviously playing their daughter. I cannot recall specifically if we've seen a daughter previously.
Now,
Like
now
in
the
Conjuring
people.
I feel like
2
we've
or
seen,
anything?
Let me.
brief
I'm very curious, and I
Like
wanted to
like
ask.
a much younger version, maybe.
I wanted to ask the Geeks Who Eat, but are the people that they get the doll from at the very beginning the people at the end of the first Annabelle movie?
Of
No.
the first Annabelle movie?
Yeah, because the first Annabelle movie was after creation, timeline-wise.
Okay, well I know. Yeah, I know that.
Someone's at your door.
I'm just curious. No, producer Dave's probably just getting home.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and get into the effects.
Yeah,
Okay. Now, one of the things I wanted to get into was the fact that one of the most effective things in this movie was
Effective effect, huh?
coin glint. Coin glint is just as nerve-wracking as cat's eyes when a light shines on them. And there was a couple of times where I was like, are they going for eyes over there? I don't really know. And then a flashlight pops up, and then boom, coins drop. I was like, oh! Like, I liked a lot of the effects in this movie. There were definitely a lot of CG stuff. There was even an effect that I thought was borderline okay to even have in a Conjuring movie, right? And I think if Fuego thought it's let's call it the outdoors effect.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Like I was like, that's a little bit weird, but I was on board with it by the end. I was like, they're using it plot wise to contain and stuff, but I was okay with it. So I ultimately, while there was a lot of digital, it wasn't as egregious as the non-digital effects were, I don't think.
I would argue comparable, but that's just me.
Okay,
personally.
no, that's
Yeah.
fair. That's well. So those are my thoughts on the effects. They were apparently digital because obviously these things don't just happen and we don't catch them on camera. But I thought that they were still good effects. What did you think, Mark?
I enjoyed him. I enjoyed it way better than the Nun. There was nothing so over the top, in my opinion.
Effects-wise?
Effects-wise,
Okay.
that really pulled me out of it. Except for maybe the outdoor effect did pull me out of it because I'm just like, what, is nobody noticing this right now? Like,
Well, and it feels like almost a different movie, but
it does. But I do understand your thought process too. It's like they're trying to seclude them and kind of show like, you know, they're surrounded. And
it's a barrier without needing an actual magical barrier.
Right.
And
Right.
it's
There's
a
no way to.
self-contained,
Yeah. And I get that, but at the same time, it's kind of like. I don't know. It kind of like nobody picked up on it. Like, man, it's really.
But did you buy the effects? Did they sell anything for you?
Yeah, I didn't.
Sell the scares at all at times?
I mean, yeah, like I said, like there was nothing that pulled me out of it, so I thought all of them were effective, and it was fun to watch.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, there's something in particular with a board game that was one of my favorite effects sequences in the entire film. I thought that was really good. I don't know, everything from their weird dungeon of craziness was all very visually awesomely represented, whether it's like the samurai suit that we see in the trailer. I mean, the
cool.
crazy bride that we see in the trailer and how that character is utilized. And really for me, I love the look of the otherworldly essence tied to the Annabelle doll that I think is like the closest thing to something that's kind of pulling the proverbial strings of the conduit, like what's flipping the switch on that makes it hum and makes everything go closer to it. I thought that was cool. The outdoor effects I did not like, including one creature in particular that we saw outside. I did not like that stuff, although I did laugh where the guy's chickening out and then he ends up in a like kind of, you know, area with all these chickens. I thought that was a little on the nose. But
By the way, if you're curious where this movie takes place, it's in Fogland, USA.
yeah.
Because that is
John
apparently
Carpenter will
the
approve.
foggiest goddamn town in all of America.
So
Like
foggy,
this movie
nobody
took
paid
place
attention to it.
in the fog movie.
Yeah.
It was its own thing. Like there was so much rolling fog, and I'm like, guys, That doesn't happen. Like, it doesn't ripple on the ground like that. Like,
and that's where the nun comparison is fair.
No,
there's
it is.
so
it
much
is.
goddamn
like,
fog in the nun.
There's some over-the-top effects here. Well, Gary Doberman must just like his fucking...
I guess he does, because he's responsible for both of those. So.
He's a fog man.
He's a fog man.
He grew
He's
up
a fog man.
He must have grown up
I love that you picked up on it. Yeah. All right, sweet.
Perfect segue to music, though, because
Yeah.
I loved the classic rock sound, the classic rock soundtrack, though, and the fact that music is
classic
used,
and even classic,
Classic.
old school.
Like
Classic whole,
1950s,
yeah.
20s music, yeah.
But as is a big trend in horror, they take a popular song from a particular era, in this case, a song by a group called Badfinger, called Day After Day, if I'm not mistaken, and they make it creepy. They slow it down, and there's this repeated line of...
They do the Us version of
They
I
do.
Got 5 on it.
Yeah, exactly. But you've got the Guess Who. You've got tons of great classic rock in here, which is really effectively used.
But I did want to mention the sound design. I thought the sound design was really effective in this.
Once again.
And I think, honestly, they got to the pound, pound, pound of footsteps before It Chapter 2 did.
It's something
Even though It Chapter 2 is
well.
in the trailer, the pound, pound, pound of
We
footsteps.
saw it right before.
This literally has the pound, pound, pound of footsteps that was effective. And it was from something that you wouldn't anticipate the pound, pound, pound of footsteps to come from.
Yeah.
So again, I think that makes it doubly effective in a sense. It's weird. A lot of people, I could see this movie being a bit of a mixed bag. I could see critics hating
In some
it.
ways, I think it is a mixed bag.
I could see critics really hating it because, a lot of critics just don't go into movies wanting to just be entertained. And I'm still the person, if you want, I don't consider any of us critics, not professional critics, because we're not paid to be critics. We're paid to entertain.
Yeah.
So
That's why I call myself an entertainment correspondent.
There you go. So, but we can give our opinions. And while this movie is fun, it's not deep, and it's not going to be anything that critics haven't seen before.
Yeah.
So
It's
there's going to
flawed
be
but
people
fun, man.
tearing it down.
Yeah.
But straight up, like I need to rewatch Annabelle Creation. I only saw it the once, but I remembered really liking it.
Yeah.
I don't remember which of these I'd prefer, but as of right now, this is my favorite Annabelle movie just because it's
Really?
so closely tied to the Conjuring universe.
Yeah, hands down. This
I've
was
wanted to see a
so
movie about
better.
that goddamn room since they introduced it in the first Conjuring movie.
This
and
felt
now
more-
this is that movie. Like,
This
there
felt-
are things from that room out and about just messing with people.
Okay, well,
that's what I wanted.
With that in mind, I will say this is definitely Conjuring 2.5. Whereas, if you're going to think about the specific spin-off movies, you have Creation, you have the original Annabelle movie, you have apparently La Llorona at this point.
La Llorona
as
is
we know,
part
and
of
we
the
have
Conjuring
the Nun.
universe. Yep.
I still say Creation is the strongest of those four movies because that doesn't feel as closely connected. The strongest. Okay,
It's its own thing. It doesn't
Creation
rely
is not better
on
than
the
La
Conjuring.
Llorona. Creation is not better.
Creation's better
the
than
second one?
Creation's
I would
better
say
than La
Creation
Llorona.
is better than Nun, La Llorona, and the original Annabelle.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's better.
I
than
don't
all
think it's
three of
better
those.
than this movie.
I don't know that it's better than this. I need to rewatch it before
I
I
wouldn't
can
say it is because this is the one I actually enjoyed the most. Because
I'm
all
actually
the,
kind of surprised by that, to be honest with you.
on the
I
other
wasn't
ones,
sure what
I
you'd
just
think.
didn't like it. I felt like this is closer to what I've been waiting for than the other movies.
This
'Cause
is
the
more
other
like another
movies was
Conjuring
just
than a spin-off, though.
slow.
This didn't feel like a spin-off to me. This felt like Conjuring 2.5. I was
Maybe
just
that's
fine,
why
though.
that's
That's
why I
fine.
liked
Yeah.
it.
But it
was
didn't
because
need to
it
be.
was
It was
more in
so
aligned
what?
with the
So because of the
universe.
name, like you're knocking it down points, like
No.
like
not at
well,
all.
that's what I'm curious. Like I get it. Yes, it is Conjuring 2.5, but so what? It was a good Conjuring 2.5. It really was.
I think it's like, to make a comic book movie reference, it's like where some people were like, oh, Avengers 2.5 was essentially Civil War. They should have just called it that.
That's fair.
That's kind of the argument that I'm making.
Okay.
So.
You think they should have just called this the Conjuring Annabelle or something like that?
Maybe.
Like,
Yeah, I think that, I mean, especially with the
Well,
presence
but
of Ed
Annabelle
Lorraine.
Comes
so.
Home.
Presence
Annabelle
of
Comes
Ed-
Home makes a lot of sense in
Presence of
retrospect.
Ed and Lorraine specifically is what ties this in directly in comparison.
And their room. I mean, it's their
In
house. It's
comparison
their
with Creation.
family. It's being affected.
But I feel like this is more Annabelle than any of the other movies, in my opinion. Just
that's
because.
fair, because the Nun
because-
was more at the forefront of Creation. You know?
Yes, I feel like this movie was more about Annabelle and what she actually is and what it makes her scary and what her essence is. Not like, oh, this is how she got created. This is like, oh, this is how this, The very first movie with the weird serial killer thing that didn't make sense.
Yeah, I didn't
The
like that.
creation where it was like, okay, this is where she was created, and things get a little creepy, but it still didn't make sense. This one, hands-on, I'm a conduit, I'm bringing all the evil, there is a demonic presence here, and I'm gonna make shit happen. That's what makes her dangerous, and that's what's so fun to watch. And I think that's what makes it away from the Conjuring, because it's not about... Conjuring is about the Warrens and their adventures and everything. We get a little bit of it, but this isn't about them. This is about Annabelle. This is about how she affects the people, and then a little bit introducing new characters and their child, and kind of telling that kind of story too. So I feel like it is completely separate, and I feel like this is definitely the movie I've been waiting for.
If I may, I think a succinct way to put that is, when you see Annabelle in the first Conjuring movie, in her case, this is the movie that made Ed and Lorraine Warren kind of scared of Annabelle. Like, they know the other stories. Like, if anyone is going to point to why Annabelle is in this case, it's because of this movie.
So this
not
is
Annabelle 1, not Annabelle Creation. It's because of the events of this movie, because of the ringleader aspect that I kind of mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so
because if Annabelle's out, then there's no telling what the hell else is going to happen.
So this is the fulfillment of a promise that the very first Conjuring universe
Yes,
film
and
made.
the other two Annabelle movies did not fully fulfill.
Yes.
I
I
liked
agree with
Creation
Marcia 100%
because
on
it
that.
was so much different, but Marcia raises a very good point that I cannot disagree with there. So this is the best. As far as a pure Annabelle movie goes, you can't beat this one.
As far as
You're right.
far as a pure movie about that Annabelle doll
Yeah,
from Conjuring
exactly.
1
Yeah.
goes,
Yeah.
this is the movie that you wanted to see.
Yeah. I feel like they finally
Well,
fulfilled that promise, like you
I
guys
agree.
said. Yeah,
I agree.
that's-
And quite honestly, when it comes to spoilers,
Yeah.
guys, I don't think this movie is so bare bones
Yeah.
and so straightforward that it's just who lives, who dies.
A lot's
And
revealed
I
in the
don't
trailer
think
too.
there is, but that's all we're gonna say about it.
Can we spoil
It's not
right now?
I don't think we need to. It's literally who lives, who dies, and so that one sentence spoils everything. But we don't need to do that.
I feel like it is definitely a movie that people should just enjoy.
Yeah,
and not don't
I agree.
spoil it. Because,
I don't think it's worth spoiling in a
because
review.
you're gonna shortchange yourself, and you're not gonna be able to enjoy the movie for the purity of it is. And just go to be entertained. Don't go to get frazzle dazzle. Just let
I
it.
love it.
Let it
Frazzle-dazzle.
happen and just enjoy it, because I'm telling you, if you've been so disappointed about Annabelle like I have, and you're just waiting for this actual true like scare to come, this is it. This is what you've been waiting for.
Cool.
All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and call the review there. I may cut Marcia loose, and maybe Fuego and I will jump back on camera for a spoiler section after a drink or two. I doubt it though, but we'll see.
Yeah, you are right. There's not much to spoil.
There's really
there's-
not. It's
yeah.
just who lives, who dies.
Yeah, and like
So-
specific scares that you just really don't want to take away from me.
No, you really don't. So this will probably be it. I'm just, covering my bases. But thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, click that like button down below. I think it's going to be somewhere over, right where I'm pointing at Fuego's dick. It's going to be somewhere a little bit past that. And then if you enjoyed the
little
video
bit.
and want to see more, I don't know if you guys, this video is coming out after all of our Child's Play coverage, so you likely will have already seen our Child's Play review.
More
But
creepy dolls.
we're doing our review of Annabelle one day before we actually go see Child's Play, so it's a couple of days of dolls for us. But I'm so excited to see the other one, but this one ended up being better than I thought it was going to be.
It was a lot of fun.
So I wanted to make sure that you guys knew about it. So thank you very much for watching. If you did like and subscribe while you're down there, why not click the link to the Patreon in the comment or in the description box? Because if you do, you can actually pick movies for us to review going
Yeah.
forward.
Tell
How
us
you
what
like
to
them?
do.
You can control us like puppets. But
Like
thank you guys.
Annabelle.
Yeah, like the creepy ghosts moving Annabelle around. You can do that. So thank you guys for watching. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
I'm Marsh Parker.
Gracias, I've been having Fuego.
And remember, stay
Stay scared.
scared.